All right, so everything's looking pretty good. We've still got a few details to work on here and there. But one thing I've decided I really want to focus on is the beards with all the little hairs coming off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around upside down and I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to go ahead and get all the colors added in, and then we're going to take the engraving tool and we're going to pull out all the little hairs. Okay, let's see here. So I've got a good purple still there. I think I might need a little bit more. So we've got in between red, and as you go that direction, it gets bluer. Ooh, let's make sure I don't have any yellows going in there. Okay. So part of the little beards here, they've got a little bit of a dark area, and I think I was mentioning this before. So I'm just going to soften. And then I'm going to get some blue. Probably what would have been better to do, and I'm going to go ahead and redo this here. Now I'm putting water over the whole thing. I don't think the way I was doing it before, that was working very well. Okay, so now I've got water on it. So just ignore what I just said, and I'm just redoing this. So now I'm going to get some blue from over here. And I'm going to drop the blue in. And now I'm going to pick up some of this purple, and as it gets down here, it gets a little darker. I'm going to pull the color out a bit. And then as we get over into this area, okay, so I'm going to wet this whole area. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the red. And a little bit, again, a little bit more yellow. And a little bit of that burnt sienna. And I have water on my ferrule. Okay, so let's try that again. A little bit of red. Okay, and now let's go into this dark value. Actually, let's go back into the purples first. Because it really is blending in with with that part of this petal and this part of the petal. So I want to build up my colors first. Okay, now let's come more over to this side. And let's go back to a little bit more of the blue. Okay, now back to the purple. And remember, I'm not paying attention to where any of the little hairs are coming up. Let's do this first. Then I'm going to go back in and we're going to add in all those little hairs. And let's pick up some of this dark value. I'm going to try to get it as dry as I can on my brush. And go right down through the middle here. And it goes all the way back into this area. So now, let's pick up some of the brown and some of the red. And back to some of that darker value. Okay, now Going to add a little bit of water, just soften that. A little bit more of the darker values. Some burnt sienna. Oh, I see what I did. I probably went too far with, okay, because there's this little edge right there. So let's see if I can put that in. It's almost exactly the same as on the other side. And then right in through here, it's a darker area just like there. In fact, while I'm over here and I'm letting that sink in, add a little bit more the red. Okay. Let that kind of sit there for a minute before I come back in. So I thought I'll just kind of work over here a little bit and blend these colors out a little bit. Soften these down a little bit by covering them up some. Okay. Now I'm going to come back over here on this side and let's pick up a little bit more of that dark value. Okay, dark. And up top it needs a little bit more red, actually a little bit more of that purple. I'm adding a little bit more water with it. Okay, now I think we'll be able to put in all of the white tips. And then I can always go back between the tips and the little hairs, and we can make it so that it looks like there's dark between. So we'll go behind the little white spaces the little white hairs. Okay, so far that's good. Now let's go, let me move this over and we'll let that dry. Okay, I think I've got the dark part just about where it should be. I think that's good. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, we'll let it stay like that, and we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to start out with kind of this yellow, or red violet. So we're doing the same thing here. And the same, and I think it's important that we probably have to really get that little area in at the same time I'm doing them. So let's go ahead. I'm pulling over a bunch of that dark value. Okay, and right up. Okay. You know, sometimes you just have areas of a painting that just throw you off for some reason. And this little area just been throwing me off. I don't know why. It just is. Okay. Now I'm going to smooth it out. It comes up and around. Okay, now from here, coming right over into this area. And this kind of comes down. Okay, now I think I've really got it. Okay, a little bit more of the burnt sienna and some yellow. Up towards the top. And again, once I come through with the engraving pen, you'll be able to see the yellows and the oranges kind of coming through. So I'm going to up that a little bit more. And then, okay, more of that brown. Okay, so it comes down right here. It's going to come up right in here. And of course, it's hard to see yet because we don't have the little those little hairs coming up yet. So we just have to guess what that's going to look like till we finally get it in. Okay, and on this side, and then it's coming out. And then let's get a little bit more of that purple and we'll soften it. And then it comes out. Okay, we have more. I'm just gonna soften these edges. Okay, now it all looks like it's kind of flowing a little bit. So what I want to do, and again, I'm going to darken this and then I'll be able to pick it all back out with my engraving pen. That's probably too much of that, so let's get a little bit of that purple in there. Okay, let's go back. Get some really dry. Some really dry color. Okay. Okay, so we'll let that dry and let's go over this area. A little bit more color and deepen it right there. Okay, let's just soften all this. Okay, that looks good. Now, let's get in this little tiny area here. Okay, then it comes back, and that's the little fold, and I'm going to switch back to a 2-aught and get that water off my ferrule. Put a little bit more color back right in there and there and there. Okay, a little bit more dark value. Okay. Smooth out some of that color. So just be aware that I'm just going to keep moving around right in this area so that I can let some parts dry. Okay. Now a little tiny bit of the gray. Okay, it needs to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to pick up some of that dark value. Probably needs a little bit of red too. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of the yellow. Okay, so far I think it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to come back over here now, and this time I'm going to wet this area. Then I'm going to turn it back over, dry it, and then I'm going to put the hairs in it and start picking out some of these highlights that I'm missing. Okay, I've got my engraving pen. Now I just have to figure out what tip out of my tips I'm going to like the best. This is one of the tips I have over here that are carbide. These ones are all the diamond tips. So I'm going to try a carbide one first because it should make a really fine line and a little fine mark. So let's see how that one does first. Okay, so I'm just gonna perfect. Okay, actually should have been zooming in on that. Okay, so this one is a good one, but I think because it's so tiny, I need to use it at a high speed. So let's see what happens now. So I'm starting on the little top ones. Let's try it this direction. I think it makes better ones going the other direction. See, because the tip is spinning that way, so when you're pulling down, it's pulling against it. If you push upward, it's going with the direction. And I think this works better. I think that probably if you do have one of these, I think one thing I'm going to do, I have one that's even smaller than that. I mean, I love the line it's making, but I just want to try this smaller one. And I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to kind of turn it at an angle. Okay, it's working. So that's going to look so cool when I get that darker color between them. So you've got the ones on the very top. And then I could come back and I can darken these ones a little bit. Okay, and then there's these little dots. Which I might want to use a different tip on those. So I think I'll just go back to this little area and then hold it really lightly as it's coming downward. Because it's kind of like they're in clumps. Even all the way, there's a few of them that are hidden in the shadows over here. So I'm getting those in and then I'll just darken them up. But this helps so you know that there's actually some shape to them. Okay, so there's that row. And then we've got this. We've got this area down here. In fact, I think I actually even need to turn it more of an angle so that my hand doesn't press down hard. It's just going to be easier to kind of pull this direction. Yeah, that's much better. So let's turn it. So far, so good. And let's go ahead and let's turn this direction now. Okay. Okay, now that I'm over here, let's make sure that some of these are thicker. Brush it away. Because some are thin and some are thick. And they're going a little bit different directions too. And it helps to hold it carefully. Just be real gentle. Try it on another piece of paper if you're not sure. There. Okay, I'm gonna, which way am I gonna do this? I'm gonna pull it this way. So I'm gonna switch this completely around. Okay, this should be a little bit easier. There we go. Because some of that is the area behind. Okay, and then as they come down in here, they're going to get darker. So I will go over them once I get to that point. But these are a little bit longer, and then they get really dark as they come down in here. So I'm just kind of adding the texture. And then of course, then this comes along. Okay, let's see if I can. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back this way. I'm going to turn this off for a sec. And I'm going to look at my image and flip it over. Here, and let's look at it. Very nice. Okay, so let's zoom back in a little bit, and I'm gonna switch from, let me get just a few more. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one out, and I am going to use this tip, which is a diamond tip. And this time I've got it on slow, so let's zoom in just a little bit more, if I can get there. Okay, and now, see, because these are a little bit softer. So we've got that. So we can make all these little dots that are coming down. And let's get these little edges back on here. Actually, I think I want a smaller one. Okay, so I'm going to switch back now to a really small one. I just got to find it. I think that might be the smallest I've got, so I'm just going to have to be really careful. I'm just going to kind of gently hold it in my hand. That way I don't press too hard for all those little speckles coming down. And same over here. And let's get this little line back in. A little bit of edge coming up there. And there. Okay, I think we've got, these are good. Actually, I could have put those in with these little guys. Look at how great it makes those little lines going up. And depending on how fast or how slow you drag it across. Oh, I still need to work on that. And we still need to work on all that. And let's see, and then down in here, these might be better off using the smaller tips. Lighten that up a little bit. Okay, let's back it out a little bit. It's almost like you're just scratching the surface with an X-Acto knife. And lighten up those little edges. This is such a fun tool to use. And a couple little light spots. And then there's a couple in here. And there's a little one right there. Okay, now I can turn this off. Okay, now let's go back to our 5/0. Let me brush this off. Okay, let's back out and just take a look before we even start coloring that just a little bit. So like right along those edges now, we need to darken it up so it looks like those little hairs on the beard are sinking down a little bit, and it needs to be a little bit darker there. But now we got the basic shape. So okay, let's zoom back in a little bit, and let me zoom back in. See, because once I get it down into there, I get really dark. But I did notice, I don't know if I got enough of these little dots. Oh, and right here. Okay, I think we're good there. A little bit right there, and I'm going to really have to work on that area. So, okay, now let's take the 5/0. Now that we've established a shape, and let's get some blue again. Some of the red. And the yellow. And again, I always overdo it with the yellow. Okay. That's a pretty cool green though. Okay, a little bit back with the red. And of course, lots more blue. Okay. The only thing I can think is a little bit more red. Maybe even a little bit more. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take my little 5/0 find my paper towel here. And let's get this really dark going into that corner here. So I'm just going to take my wet brush just going to touch around the bottom part of it. Now let's get some of this purple. Go around. Oh, I could have got some more down in those areas. Okay, I'll let it dry. And then we'll go back. I'm going to get some blue. Can't see. Here, I'll move this up. So I'm going to grab some blue. Kind of going in and around. Now we need some purple. See, you can keep doing this back and forth till you get it exactly the way you want it. Okay, now let's do that again. This area, let's cover them up just a bit. Okay, and now they're kind of back into that little area. Okay, now let's go over to this part, and now that we've got our black, okay, and let's get our color. See how I'm just gliding right over them, and it's making it darker behind them, but also adding a little bit of color. Okay, now I'm going to grab some very watery color, and I'm going to try to go in, kind of in between. Let's see. Okay, just kind of tone them down a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get some yellow, some of that red. Just going to go right over the tops just a little bit. All the way down into this area, but to where you can still see them a little bit, but they look like they're pushed in some. Okay, now let's go back over to the purples. See how I'm going right in between them? So much easier than trying to draw all those out. Oops, that was a little bit too much blue. Yikes. Okay, a little bit more of the darker purple down here. Now we go back to red. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. Oh, that looks so good. I'm very happy with that. Make sure I don't have any colors anywhere. Okay, now I'm going to take my number 2. We're going to get some of this purple and we're going to pull it right through here. And we're going to go right in between those tips. Make it a little bit darker and let it stand out. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks really nice. Got those hidden in there. Now we just need to get those little areas. And now we can start finishing up these little edges. So the interesting thing is, because this bud is behind this leaf, we're seeing it in front or in back of this petal that's right here. So let's get this petal done. Now I've got some really nice purples here. Okay, I'm just going to wet this. Soften the edge. A little bit of color around that outside. And now let's go get some of this gray and down towards the bottom. Oh, and then I can use that engraving pen to help pick out some of the highlights. And I'm going to drop in I'm going to get my biggest tip from these. I'm going to use some of these really big ones, and then I'm just going to let it rest in my hand, and I'm going to drop it on there so that we can, so we see pollen. In fact, it may be even better to use the sanding tool. So we'll see here. That might have worked good along that area, because what all that is, it's some of the pollen has fallen off. Okay, so a little bit. Okay, a little bit more color. Let's get this gray right along the bottom. Okay, so we've got the gray on there, but it needs a little bit more purple. Right along the top edge. And it's kind of hard to really see what's going on there. It's just kind of a bunch of scrunchy edges of the petal as it's flipped up. So it flips up and then it comes into here. And then we come back to another fold. And now we'll soften it, because right along that edge, there's no highlight there. So now it looks like it's folded over. In fact, now we can actually make that even a little bit darker and let it blend in with the rest of the fold. Very nice. That's a perfect fold. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to steal from the darker petal, and then I'm going to come over here and grab some of the dark value. I'm going to go around the edge and just really clean it up. Okay, darken there. Okay, and now there's kind of a gray. This is all kind of gray. And needs more gray. Okay, so now it's getting a ruffly look. And then it comes back, and let's just add a little bit of color. Okay, so now we have the little ruffled, folded edge. We've got this little dark area. Darkening it just a little bit more. Oh, I just love how that's all come out. Just a little bit more. Perfect. I love how this this tip made those nice little brushed almost edges. I think this little area here, I'm gonna add a little bit more water here. Okay, let's put a little bit more of this red on the top. Okay. All right, so we've got that, and all we need to do is finish those two little areas. And I need to get this all in here. We need to get some little veins in there, and then I'll go over it with color again. Okay, but now I'm going to start off with this little brush. And I'm going to pay attention to how they branch off. Everything kind of branches into a Y. And they kind of run into each other. And then they kind of branch off again. And if you have trouble with veins, use a smaller brush. See how they keep branching as they get more towards the outer edge. Okay, darkening that up a little bit. Soften that up just a bit. Okay, now we're coming down. Okay, and then we've got this turn there, and then okay. Got some of those veins in. Let's go ahead and make some over on this side. And we'll scrub some of that out. Yeah, because that came down too dark in there, but that's okay. All right, so now I'm going to get my 0. And we're in this clean purple. And I'm just making some lines coming up. And some coming down this way. And then just go back and forth with your brush. Okay, let's more color right in here. Back to some reds. And then down in here. Okay, we have a shadow. And then so it comes right across and up. And then it goes back to a little bit of gray right here. So far, so good. This needs a lot of help. So I'm going to pull those colors up and over and around. And back to my number 2. Okay, let's get some of the blue. Making our purple again. And now water and pulling it back around. Just going over this whole area with water. Just to let it soften a little bit. Okay, now I have to grab some of this very dark value. It's not too dark. And I'm still going to show you a little trick I have. As soon as it gets dry, we'll probably do it towards the end though. Okay, let's go with a little bit more. That gray is still kind of yellow, so let's add in some blue and some of that red. Okay, there we go. A little bit more of the dark value right in here. Of course, we can't do anything about that curve until it gets completely dry. And it's really dark there, and really dark there. Really dark there, and is very dark in here. I don't feel like I did a really good job there, but I'll fix that later. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, now let's come over here. Let's pick up a little bit of the blue. Now let's put that brush down. Let's go back to our 0 and pick up some of this gorgeous dark value that we made. And remember, this is the fold from that petal. In fact, I think this needs to be a little bit darker here. Okay, and we'll let that dry And then we're coming down into the stem, and I still think I'm going to need my big number 4. And I have to get this a little bit darker. Lowering the value in this area with color. And this is going to be perfect for this little tool and pull out all the little stripy areas. Okay, adding a little bit more color here. And with a little bit darker value, and then smoothing it out. Smoothing it out again. So far it's looking really good. Although, I think we could go a little bit darker right in this area. Now I've got my wet brush, running it along the side. Because that's really the darkest part of everything. And right there. Right around the edges of that beard. Let's go back to my number 2. Actually, it's pretty colored right in that area. Okay, I think this has come out good. I think this needs to be a little bit darker. And let's wet it. And a little bit more right here. There we go. And where else it needs to be darker is right in this area. Still not dark enough up there. And not dark enough right up in here. See, what you have to do is just when you get to this point, just keep going back and forth. Now, the only thing is that's starting to be missed in this area is the really light values. And a little bit darker color right up in here, pulling that color out. Okay, I'm going to put that down. I'm going to go back to my 0 and let's get that burnt sienna. Let's get a little bit redder and a little bit more yellow. And let's go right along this edge. And I'm just going to smooth it out a little bit, and then we'll pick out the highlights later. And now that little area behind there is really bright now. Okay, so far it's so good, but I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna get everything dried. And I have a spot right there. All right, so everything is looking pretty good. I've seen a few things that I'm gonna need to do because they're definitely not dark enough. I'm gonna have to take some of this dark value and I'm gonna have to get it right into these areas. And same here, it's just not dark enough, but I can play with that later. Right now I'm going to close out this lesson and we'll start in the next lesson. We might leave this alone a little bit and start working our way down. In fact, I think I want to go ahead and do another color. So I'm going to make room on here and we're going to do the stem in the next lesson.